Hi, I'm Vanessa Chelvan, and this is The Motherload, a 5-part podcast series by the Straits Times. Let's talk about what it takes to balance motherhood and a day job. This is a space about the juggle, the 9 to 5, 5 to 9, and everything in between. We navigate the magic and the mess of being a working mum. In this episode, we turn to those who may need a bit of help in becoming mothers. In Singapore, about 15% of couples struggle with infertility. Some go through IVF once, others do it 4, 5, 6, up to 10 or 12 times. And I keep asking myself, how? How do you keep putting your body and your heart through that? I have with me two people with first-hand experience. Divya Menon from IVF support group Fertility Support SG. Hi, Divya.
Hi, Vanessa. Thanks for having me here.
Of course. And Elisha Tushara, my colleague here at the Straits Times.
Hey, girl. So glad our lunchtime conversations have come out of the coffee shop and onto
into the podcast.
Yes.
Divya, I want to start with you. Where are you in your journey right now?
So I've been on this journey for a few years now, and I actually went straight into IVF. I was 40 when we started, and I also have diabetes and high blood pressure. So me, my husband and I, doctor, I think, had to make that decision very quickly that it was going to be IVF. And I've been through multiple cycles now. And I had a miscarriage early this year, at 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm still in the game. I'm still going to continue this journey. And I think that's actually why I said yes to this conversation. Not only is it therapeutic, but I think it's also because I know what it's like to sit in a meeting, smile, present, and carry that enormous weight of what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. And Elisha, what about you?
Okay, thanks, Vanessa, for having me on. So I had my first child when I was 33. And although it wasn't done through IVF or IUI, I did need to go to the gynae, take pills, and he had to monitor the development of my egg. So it was some sort of assisted fertility in that sense. And after I had my son, we didn't want him to grow up to be an only child. So we wanted him to have a sibling. And we found that it was so much harder than the first time. And when I went back to my gynae to try taking the pills, it didn't work. And we did try IUI a couple of times. That didn't work as well. So that was when we decided to try IVF. So I've done 2 egg retrievals and I've done 5 embryo transfers. And my daughter was conceived during my last try when I turned 40, and that was the last egg I had left from that process.
You mentioned IVF, IUI. Let's talk about the difference. So most people are familiar with in-vitro fertilization, that's IVF, where an egg is fertilized by sperm outside of the body and the resulting embryo is then transferred into the uterus, right? Well, less well-known is intrauterine insemination, IUI, which is a bit less invasive procedure in which sperm is placed directly into the uterus during the fertile window. I want to talk about what IVF looks like from the inside, right? So many of my friends have been through one form of fertility treatment or another, and almost all of them did it quietly, right? Fitting appointments around work, family, telling no one. So just quietly disappearing for a few hours and then getting on with things. Elisha, can you tell us what was happening to you week to week? The injections, the monitoring, the retrieval, what did that feel like?
So at that time, I was still working as a teacher. And because, teaching hours are so rigid, I cannot just take leave whenever I wanted to go and see the gynae. So everything had to be timed, everything had to be planned. It was a very stressful period. Because there's not a single injection you can miss. You have to keep track of everything you're doing. You have to keep up with your gynae appointments. And while you're trying to concentrate at work, at the back of your mind, you're always thinking about, am I doing things right? When I go to the gynae next, am I going to hear good news? Am I going to hear bad news? So it was a lot. But I guess if you want a child bad enough, it's just something you just have to force yourself to go through.
Was that kind of the same experience for you, Divya?
It is. And I think everybody looks at IVF as like one big dramatic procedure. It's not. It's days and days of injections. It's looking at your calendar. It's looking at the reports that your doctor sends you, and it takes a toll on you. And for me, I'm also diabetic and on insulin. So I think there was a point where I think maybe I lost count of how many times I was jabbing myself every day, and it becomes routine, but you're doing it. You're doing it in the bathroom. You're going back to work. And I work in comms, so you have to present. You have to, make people feel better about things, when you're part of that comms process. And you're just trying to hold it together because not everybody understands it. And I think while the physical, it takes a toll on you, right? On your physical body, how you feel, being bloated, being tired, being exhausted. But I think it's also that whole emotional toll that is so much more brutal. I think you're constantly thinking to yourself, there's so many steps in the IVF process. There's the egg retrieval. So before that, there's the prep, and then there's the actual retrieval. Then you're thinking, oh my God, will I have enough eggs? And then the next step is, oh my God, will it turn into blastocysts? Then the next step is, oh my God, will they be good quality eggs? So it never ends. It's always something or the other. You don't just do it and you're like, okay, I'm done, because it doesn't work out that way. And then the next step is, of course, the embryo transfer. And that is just another process and mental torture. Leading up to it, have I taken all the vitamins? Have I taken all my supplements? Am I eating the right things? Do I have enough sleep? And then, every night you're thinking about it. And the day before, I was like, oh, you need to rest. And I'm like, okay, if I sleep now, I've got 8 hours. Oh, no, if I sleep now, 7 hours. But you're just thinking about it until it happens. And then you're like, oh, my God, I'm exhausted. And then you're like, oh, is it going to stick? And then after it sticks, it's like, does it have a heartbeat? Is it going to be an ectopic pregnancy? It's just one thing after that. It's I've done it and that's it.
And just right at the start of IVF, I mean, you don't or at least I didn't expect it to be so uncomfortable, at the start. Because I don't know whether a lot of people know this, but when a woman ovulates, I think she releases like 1 or 2 eggs at a time. But with IVF, you take injections to sort of hyper-stimulate your ovaries. And I remember, the first one I don't remember, but my second egg retrieval, I had 18 or 19 eggs that were just waiting to be retrieved from the body. And I always joke with my colleagues that I felt like a mother hen walking around in school. It was so uncomfortable. I felt so bloated, always crampy, but you just have to suck it up. What can you do?
Usually from 1 to 2 eggs to suddenly, have 18, it's a lot. And I suspect physically very uncomfortable as well.
Right. And with 18, you feel so hopeful. But most of the time when the egg retrieval is done, or in my case at least, less than half of them were viable of good quality for insemination.
And you talk about the toll, all this is happening, the emotional weight, the hope, the uncertainty. Where does this drive come from? What kept you going back, trying again? Because for most people, for you, it didn't take just once, right?
I think my husband and I were very resolute that we didn't want my son to grow up to be an only child. And at the back of our minds, it was always that once we are gone, we didn't want to leave him alone in the world. So we thought it would be important for him to have a sibling. So that's what kept me going. And it was very hard because my first egg transfer ended up to be ectopic. So it was really like a crushing defeat because you see the HCG numbers growing, and then after that they plateau, and then the doctor tells you have to terminate the pregnancy. And my second egg transfer didn't take. And the next 2 egg transfers ended in a miscarriage. And then the last one was when I finally conceived. So it's just hard to make that decision to, put yourself through all that all over again, not knowing that there's going to be success at the end of it. But, people do it for their own reasons. But for mine, it was just that I wanted to give my son a sibling. And I always thought that if I stopped trying, it just won't happen. So I just told myself I just had to continue trying until it happened.
What about you, Divya?
I don't know. Sometimes you wonder how much you can take emotionally and physically. I've always wanted to be a mom. I love kids. And everyone would always say, oh, you'd make such a great mom. With this last miscarriage, once it had taken, we saw the heartbeat. We really thought this was it, me and my husband. And then when we went into the doctor's appointment, the doctor grew quiet. You don't hear anything, and you already know, something is wrong. And it took me a while to recover. My best friend likes to say, when things happen to me, I spiral, which I do. I just want to lock myself away. I don't want to talk to anyone. In fact, I think I'm just getting out of the whole miscarriage, which happened in January. And my thing is, I just want to go to sleep for 3 months and wake up and everything will be okay, because you don't want to face that reality. But I think my husband looks at it at a different way. He has his faith. And for him, I think that positivity helps him, saying, this is not our time, but it will come. It will come. And I think I get that strength from him. And I think I'm going to give it everything I have, maybe. Even if the money goes down, the bank balance goes down, I think I need to assure myself that I've done everything I can to make this happen. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, I honestly don't know what's next, because I can't compute or understand what will happen if I don't have that. For as long as I remember, it's been wanting to have a family, having a child, and I just want one healthy child. And how much more am I willing to take? I mean, my husband has asked me, do you have a deadline? Do you want to give yourself a certain amount of time? And I said, I don't know. It's good to have a strategy. It's good to have an approach. But when it comes to things like this, there's no deadlines. There's no schedules. There's no, like following something. It's not like working hard for a test or studying for a test. You're like, I studied hard. I'm going to do well. This one, whatever I do, I just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you can do everything and it's still part of it is out of your hands, right?
Yeah, but maybe it's that faith or hope that I will one day be able to have a family and have that baby in my arms.
Just coming back to Elisha's point, you said your first was an ectopic pregnancy. For our listeners who don't know, what is that?
So an ectopic pregnancy happens when the embryo implants itself in the fallopian tube. So it doesn't implant in the uterus lining where it's supposed to. So because it's in the fallopian tube, the embryo cannot develop normally. And if you do not terminate the pregnancy, your fallopian tubes can burst and it can cause a lot of complications later on. So, I mean, luckily for me, because my pregnancy was being monitored by my gynecologist, we caught it early and we were able to terminate it before it did damage to the fallopian tube.
Okay. Thanks so much for sharing. We'll come back to, miscarriages later. We just want to talk a bit about how all this is happening, right, while you have a job to go to. You're injecting yourself with hormones in a bathroom, right, as you said, and then, walking into class to teach 40 boisterous students, right, or walking into a presentation, smile on your face, when inside you kind of feel like everything's falling apart, right? Like Elisha, let's start with you. Did people notice when you had to do that?
No, because I felt that the more I shared it with people that I was going through this, the more people would ask me, how is it going? Any updates? And it just made me very nervous. And I don't know, a part of me felt like I would disappoint them if things weren't going well. And I just didn't want to deal with that. So after a while, I just stopped telling people what I was going through or what I was doing until it was successful and I had a pregnancy to announce. But I mean, you're trying to carry on with your day job, but your mind is just filled with other thoughts, about what you hope is going to happen, what you have to do next. And it just doesn't go away until you get the news that, you have a healthy pregnancy.
Is this also your experience?
I think so. I think it's very similar to what you just said. I think a lot of people have very good intentions. They're well-meaning, but like you said, I can't handle your feelings and my feelings. I'm already processing so much. I'm going through so much, and like people come and tell you things like, how are you doing? Are you eating this? So it's a lot. I'm already trying to figure it out on my own until I know something is happening. I don't know if I need that advice or that additional feelings heaped on me. What if something happens and it doesn't turn out to be, I'm dealing with your disappointment and then I'm dealing with mine. I'm already trying to cope with everything. I don't think I can come and calm you down and myself down on top of everything else.
And, you touched on this a little bit. As a woman, IVF feels like something that happens to you, right? Every injection, procedure, side effect, I don't know, you carry it. It's your body. It's happening to you. Can you, tell me a little bit, what was your headspace like, and also your thoughts on how people have this assumption that if a woman isn't getting pregnant, like, oh, something's wrong with you.
I think there is that assumption that if something isn't working, it's because of me. For me, I played it over and over in my head. Is it my age? Is it because I'm stressed out? I've got high blood pressure. Is it because I'm diabetic? Is it my weight? I think all those things keep playing over and over in your head. And
I think especially so when people around you seem to be getting pregnant at the drop of a hat
easily,
or when
right?
they want to.
Yeah.
and you're there at all those announcements and baby showers, and you're happy for them, but you're sad at your own journey,
Yes.
right? And you're trying to smile through it and be happy, but all you want to do is just go home and just cry it out. So I'm a director at Fertility Support Singapore.
Yep.
It's a community-led, volunteer-run organization. And we support individuals and couples navigating the fertility journey in Singapore. And last year, we actually launched the Workplace Guide, which is the first of its kind in Singapore, which is a practical resource for employers who have employees going through the fertility journey. And it's quite explicit about this, our Workplace Guide. It's quite explicit where it says fertility challenges affects both men and women. And in fact, 1 in 6 couples in Singapore experiences infertility. And yet the narrative is almost always on the woman, right? Lands of the woman. The questioning, the advice. I can't tell you how many women have told me, oh, eat beetroot, drink warming things in the morning. I don't hear them telling them, my
don't
husband
drink
this. I don't think nobody's told him any of this. And it's not, but they have to understand it's both of us going through. I mean, in my case, with me and my husband, it's unexplained infertility. We've done all the checks. That almost makes it worse because there's no solution or fix for us. But it's both of us on this journey. And I think it's also a conversation that I think we need to have now, especially because more and more people are figuring out it's not just a female problem, right? Also a male problem that we have to work with.
I just want to talk a little bit more about the process, right? Everything we've talked about so far has been largely invisible. It's happening inside your body, inside your head. You don't really talk about it. I think this is kind of best encapsulated in what we call the 2-week wait. I bet you guys are very familiar with that term. But Divya, for our listeners who don't know, what is the 2-week wait? What's that like?
The 2-week wait. I think so. Basically, it's once you've got your embryo transfer, you have these 2 weeks of just waiting, where it results in either a positive or a negative test. If it's positive, that's great. That's the first sign that you are pregnant, and then you continue with your blood tests to make sure it's a healthy pregnancy. I would liken it to almost psychological warfare. It's almost that. It is, I don't know, you've done everything you can to get to that point of the embryo transfer, and then you're like, here, you've handed it over to the doctor, you've handed it over to science, and you're like, just let it get done. There's nothing else that you can do. I think a lot of women take time off from work. I think the normal is about 2 weeks. I think where they give you time off from work to be able to just focus on yourself, eat healthy, have good sleep, exercise. When I did it, the first 2 times, I took that time off. But it also kind of drove me crazy because I was just Googling things at 2 a.m. Everything was like asking ChatGPT, and all that information doesn't help, right? Because you're overwhelmed. You're already stressing out about every single thing. You're asking yourself, oh my God, did I feel something? What does that mean? And then you're Googling what that means, and it doesn't really help. I think a lot of people try to distract themselves with things that they like doing, but it's the one thing that consumes you. It's eating you up.
Because during that 2-week wait is when you have to go to the gynae for blood tests every 2 days. So what they are checking for is whether there's this HCG in your blood. And then if it's there, it means that the embryo has implanted. But every 2 days you have to go back to get your blood redrawn because they want to see that number double.
Rising.
Yeah.
So that anxiousness, the anxiety just doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Because every time you go back and take the blood test, and when you're waiting for the clinic to call you back
Yeah.
to tell you your HCG numbers, you're just praying and praying that please tell me the numbers have more than double.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so
it's like you've cleared the blood test today and you're like, I go home and tomorrow I have to wait again. So that
Yes.
stress just builds up.
Yeah, and it continues, well, at least for me, it continued until we were able to see a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very stressful, especially when you're doing it multiple times. Like you see the HCG go up and then suddenly it plateaus,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which means that, it's not a good quality embryo or the pregnancy won't last. Yeah, and then you force yourself to do it all over again. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. For our listeners who don't know, I might butcher this, right? We're talking about the human chorionic gonadoptrin HCG test.
Yes.
And Divya, just now you mentioned, some people take the 2 weeks off work to kind of, you're not supposed to be stressed, right? You're supposed to rest, relax, put your feet up. But how many 2 weeks can you take off from work, for those who do this so many times? How much time can you take off? And what about those whose employers might not be supportive?
For me personally, I was lucky enough that I think my employer and managers are, I think, a bit more open and flexible. We've talked about IVF. I have got colleagues who've gone through this very openly as well. And I think the doctor also gives you a medical certificate, right?
Yeah.
So you can take that medical leave. But I think one of the most interesting things that I found out with that FSS survey and the workplace guide is that 35% of people or women that we surveyed didn't disclose it to their workplace at all, that they were going through it. And then 77% felt there was a direct trade-off between pursuing treatment and their career. So I think that's where a lot of the anxiety and stress comes from.
Yeah.
When I think eventually did tell my manager, I think that relief was enormous. It's not like how it used to be maybe 10, 20 years ago. Things are coming out more in the workplace. People are talking about women going through menopause, going through IVF fertility treatments. And I think that has helped shape the conversation at work as well. But I don't think anybody feels like they need to be brave to be doing that. It just needs to be a safe space for them to be able to have that conversation with their managers and their colleagues at work.
Yeah. And, I keep coming back to the fact that you're in this incredibly suspended, emotionally loaded state, right? You have to get on with your job, act normal. You have a supportive workplace. But that, I imagine, would still be hard, right? And also hard when you're teaching. How did you get through that?
I don't know how. It was just completely exhausting. Yeah, especially that 2-week wait period, because you're just filled with anxiety every time you see, the clinic calling you to give you updates about your blood test results. And you're just filled with anxiety when you're making that walk to the gynae clinic and it's about to scan you and you're just praying and hoping that there's something there.
Yeah.
And I think you're just living and going through routine and not really living that life. You can't really enjoy the moment because that's all that you're thinking about.
I mean, for me, I had my son at the time when I was going through my IVF. So I think that may have helped. I can't dwell on my sadness or my grief for too long.
Yeah.
So when I go back home, I have to attend to him and you try to forget. But when I'm not with my family, when I'm at work, or when I have time to myself, that's the only thing you're constantly thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was very exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the husbands, right, in this 2-week wait, right? They're obviously trying to be supportive. They're there with you. But how do you include him, or did you have to now kind of have to juggle his feelings as well?
I think with my husband, it was the other way around. He's there for every treatment. He's there for every medical consultation. We make the decisions together because we're both in this together. And sometimes, I don't know if it's a male thing, but they want to fix everything and offer solutions to every problem. And sometimes it's not about getting a solution or getting something fixed. You just want them to sit and listen. And sometimes I just want to cry. I just want to talk, and I just want to sit there. He's I think me and my husband, we have this thing, I think, where we use jokes and try to cover up our feelings a lot that way. But I think when we are both alone, it's very raw, and we tell each other how we feel. We want to be parents desperately. We don't have that yet. And like I was saying earlier, he's got his faith, which helps him a lot.
Yeah.
And he'll say, you know, there's something in there in store for us. This wasn't it. There will be something that comes along. And I also want to believe that. That helps him. But he's there. He's there for every conversation. We make the decisions together. And I think he's my biggest support system as well.
That's lovely.
I think for me, when I was going through IVF, my husband was and still is a teacher. So it was quite difficult for him to take time off, you know, to follow me for my blood tests and appointments. But he was very forward-looking. So and that was something I appreciated about him. Like when my first embryo transfer ended up in an ectopic pregnancy and I was crushed, you know, then he told me, it's okay, we still have one, you know, just try again. And then when we tried again and it didn't happen, okay, let's try again. What else can we do? So in a way, I appreciated that he didn't have that level of grief like I did, because I don't know how I would have managed him and me as well. And I appreciated that he was always very forward looking, like, okay, what's the next step? What can we do next? Okay, when are you ready to try again? You know, and he didn't pressure me, but we always had conversations about how to move forward. And I think that's very important when you're going through infertility and trying something like IVF, for someone to just tell you or give you that motivation to just keep trying, you know, despite all your failures and whatever has happened.
You know, you talk about keeping on trying after all the failures. You know, there are other losses, right? The failed cycles, miscarriages. You know, I've had miscarriages myself, so I know something about, you know, how that grief just sits in you, right? Did it make you feel like a failure?
Yes. Yes, it did. Yeah. I mean, you feel like you weren't, for me at least, I felt like I wasn't able to bring that child into the world. And I mean, when you've had the experience of having your own child and knowing what that love feels like, and you just imagine, oh, if I had been able to carry, you know, this to term, you know, what would this child have looked like? What would they have been like? And that just kills you. Yeah. But you just have to power through, get over it, and just try again.
I don't think you ever cope or recover. In our case, we had already started thinking about names. We had, you know...
that's tough.
Because it was week 10 and we were like, we were so sure this was it. I was doing everything I could. And you start imagining life. I'm like, looking at preschools and, you know, just little things like that.
Just when the pregnancy starts feeling a bit safe, right?
Like, and we were like, okay, everything is fine. And mine, there were really no signs of a miscarriage. It was just from 1 week to the other, everything was progressing well. You go to the doctors and then he's all silent and then you already know, right? And I don't know, the failure, but I was like, what else can I do? And you keep asking yourself. And I think both my doctor and my husband were like, you have to stop doing that to yourself. These things happen. There is no reason, right? And like I was saying earlier, it's like you've studied for this test, you expect to get an A, but it doesn't work out that way in real life. I think my first embryo transfer, I did everything, the drinking warm drinks. Somebody said eat beetroots. I was eating beetroots. I went for TCM massages. I went for Ayurveda, the fertility massages. I did everything. I wore socks because everyone said your feet should not get like cold. So I did all of that and it didn't work. And then I hear somebody else was like, who did nothing. And they're like, oh yeah, I was drinking a glass of wine. And then I found out I was pregnant. I was like,
it's not fair.
It's not fair.
You know, it's not fair. And that's why you're wondering, like, why? Why does it happen for everybody else? What did I do that was wrong? What do I need to do?
I feel like sometimes you want it so much that even though, you know, you poo-poo the idea of, you know,
You'll
all
do
these
it.
suggestions, you will do it. And
I said, I'll
you
do
will take it
whatever I
super
need to.
seriously, right?
Supplements, like go and like top up all your vitamins, folic
Try a
acid,
lot of
vitamin
weird
D.
things, like acupuncture on your belly.
Which I would never go for. And I said, I'll do it. I'll just do it. Just tell me what I need to do to make it work.
You're like holding your nose, pouring the thing down your mouth, the herbal drinks, and Yeah, but you'll do it, right?
Yes.
Because you want it so bad. But was there? I mean, I know Divya, you think you'll try again, right? But Elisha, your journey was, pretty long, bumpy. Was there ever a point that you thought, I've had it, enough is enough?
I mean, so between my son and my daughter, there's a 7-year age gap, only because it took me that long to go through the whole IVF cycle.
Yeah.
And when we did the first egg retrieval, I remember we managed to get 4 eggs out of there, and that was 2 egg transfers, which were not successful. Yeah, and since we have this subsidy from the government that helps to offset some of the cost from IVF, we decided to do it. So when all the 4 eggs were used up, we decided to give it one more shot. And we got 6 eggs out of that. So the first 2 transfers were miscarriages, and I only had 2 eggs left. And they were of lesser quality. So I wasn't, because they used the best quality eggs first, right? Yeah, so the last 2 eggs were of lesser quality, and I wasn't very hopeful, but you still like, what else am I going to do? These are my only options. So, but we were very sure that once these 2 eggs were used up, that we wouldn't try again, only because at that point I was going to be 40 years old, and I didn't think, there were other things to consider about, like what were the other risks of, pregnancies at a later age. And we were like, okay, maybe it's God's will that you only have one.
Yeah.
So we were prepared to stop. Actually, now that I say it, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe if that didn't think, I would have just tried again.
Yeah.
But at that time, we told ourselves that if the last egg transfer didn't work, that we wouldn't try for a third egg retrieval. Yeah. And age was a factor in that decision.
What about you, Divya? Gonna try again, you said earlier?
I think so. Now that I've been pregnant and, I feel like I can do it again. I think it just took me 2 to 3 months just to get through this last miscarriage, but I do want it, and I'm going to, I think, do what I can to make sure it happens. And I think the good thing about me is being part of Fertility Support Singapore. I think I've heard or been privileged to hear so many stories of hope. I think my story is bad. I think I've met women who've had multiple miscarriages, 7, 8, round after round, until their bank balance is exhausted. But they're still positive and hopeful and willing to share their stories. So that also, I think, gives me a bit of courage and hope. And hopefully someday I can be somebody else's story as well.
And we need stories like that, actually, to get you through this
Yeah,
period.
when I first started, I think I was just Googling, like, pregnant and 40, can you have successful, can you have a baby at 40? Is it possible?
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about Fertility Support SG?
Sure. So Fertility Support SG, it's community-led, completely voluntary-driven. It was founded in 2020 by Shumin, who is our president, because she was going through the whole IVF process and found out there really wasn't like a support group for couples, women, and individuals going through this journey. So she brought, I think, this community together. And now we have a board of members. We are recognized. We've been out and about in the media as well. And last year we launched that first workplace support guide, which I think helped a lot of people, especially employers and HR leaders, have that conversation in their workplace. So I think it's time to make a change. It's also reflective of society as well. And like I said, 1 in 6 couples in Singapore are facing this issue. So the more we speak about it, the more there's awareness and education around it. But at the end of the day, the heart of it is we're a support community. We're here to support you through that journey. Talk to us. We'll help you through it.
I think it helps when you're journeying with someone who is going through the same thing as you.
Yeah.
I had a colleague who also went through multiple IVF cycles the same time as me. So I think it helped that there was someone there who was going through the same thing as me, and we could share feelings with each other about it.
Don't have to explain anything.
Or when someone
to
tell you,
them.
I know what it's like. I know how you feel. No, you don't. Unless you've gone through exactly what I've gone through, every single thing of the journey. You don't really understand, right? Unless it's somebody else who's gone through that same journey. So I think with FSS, this community, we realize these are people that we can talk to. They understand where we're coming from. And there's always hope that there's something happening.
Yeah. That's important.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about what this feels like from the inside, right? Now, I want to start to wrap up by looking forwards, because I think we can do better in the way we view fertility treatment, right? As workplaces, as colleagues, and as a society. So this is the big question with fertility treatment, right? Let's tackle the question of cost. Each IVF cycle typically costs about $10,000 to $18,000 before subsidies. And eligible couples at public hospitals can get up to 75% co-funding for up to 6 cycles, with just the general requirement that the woman is below 40 when starting treatment. But earlier this year, the Straits Times reported a rise in women over 40 choosing to undergo fertility treatment, including you, Divya. So how does this square?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think it's not like our mothers' generation or times where they were having children in their early 20s.
Yeah.
And one after the other.
Yeah.
Yes. Like at my age now, I think my mom had a 20-year-old. Ooh.
Can you imagine
And
that?
I can't imagine having a 20-year-old child at this age. I mean, my son is only 11. Yeah, but I think what's happening now with government help and the hospital just has to keep up with, you know, women's evolving roles in the workplace.
Yeah.
You know, and their thoughts about family. I think a lot more women are more comfortable settling first in their careers, in their relationships before even thinking about, you know, having children.
Yeah.
And I mean, I only got married at 31 because that was when I felt I was ready. And I had my son at 33. And I'm just so glad that I had that subsidy from the government to help me.
Yeah.
But if you're trying for a child after 40 and you don't have that financial support, I mean, that's another thing that will burden you on top of everything else that you have to go through with fertility treatments. Yeah.
I mean, I personally know of some couples who have just given up trying because the grants have run out, and you know, unless you want to bankrupt yourself, you have to draw a line somewhere, right?
Yes.
So the bank account is empty, but the heart is still hoping, right? It's a tough position to be in.
And the government co-funding, it helps, but it doesn't cover a lot of other things. The counseling, genetic testing, for example. And I don't even know whether insurance covers a lot of it as well. So when you look at the IVF bill, what you get is not really the final picture, right? And for somebody like me who's got diabetes and I'm on insulin and I've got high blood pressure as well, it's that added cost of everything else and keeping it all on track. So, yeah, maybe that's a bigger conversation that needs to be had. So when I think about affordability, it's not the full picture, because it's not just like one bill and like, here's what you're going to do and then here's what you're going to get out of it.
Because you still have your gynae follow-ups.
Oh,
you still have your
the
blood
tests,
tests.
the blood
you still have the
tests.
supplements, the
And
fish
every time you go there, you're like, how much is it going to take?
Yeah. And every 2 days you're paying, right, for HCG blood test. And,
But I think making that decision should never be that most important thing. You know, whether that one more try is going to break you and break your bank balance. It's already heavy enough without thinking about the cost.
I mean, so given that our total fertility rate is at an all-time low, should the government be picking up the tab for fertility treatments?
Yes. It'd be nice if they do. I mean, because you're doing it because you want children.
Yeah.
You know, so if the fertility rate is low, then I guess you just need to help couples where they're at. If they're getting married later, then that's the reality. But they want to have children, so why not help them at that age? Yeah.
And maybe the government should, you know, lift all these caps since they've already lifted the age limit. Right.
Everything that we're doing is a step in the right direction. A step to progress.
Yeah. You know, so should there be dedicated leave for fertility treatment the same way there's hospitalization leave, mental health days?
I remember when I was teaching, I purposely chose to do the embryo transfers during the school breaks.
Yeah.
So during the June holidays or during the long November, December holidays. But that was only because I didn't want to be burdened by work when I was going through that. Yeah, because even if you take a few days off or 2 weeks off, then after that you're still going back to work. Or people are still, bugging you for work-related things, especially when you're teaching. Yeah, you know what to do with your class and things like that. But it would help. But what about husbands who are going through fertility treatments with their wives then? Do they also get this leave to support their wives?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of husbands, I would think, if you needed to go through this sort of treatment, you also wouldn't want your wife to go through it alone, right? Then that brings us to the question of what about telling employers? Is the conversation necessary?
I also think with FSS, that's also a distinction that we've had to make between family-friendly and fertility-friendly as well. I think now in Singapore there is a law, right? You've got a childcare for if you have a child below a certain age. Wouldn't it be better if we could expand it? And that also says a lot about the company, right? Here's a family day. We trust it. Use it how you see fit. You don't have to tell us what it's for, but there's so many amount of days that you can be maybe for a sibling, a parent, a grandparent. Some people have pets that are their whole lives as well. If we really want to be progressive, maybe that's the direction we should be heading towards.
And what about culture? It is a lot about culture, right? How do we kind of create space for these conversations without putting the burden on the person going through it to disclose or explain or to justify themselves?
I don't think anyone needs to justify themselves. If you have that safe space at work, you should just be able to say, I need to go for a medical treatment and I need, a couple of days off, or I need to be a bit more flexible with my schedule. And that's one of the templates that we put in our workplace guide as well, to be able to give employers that flexibility, or say, here's how I'm going to have that conversation with a team member who approaches me that way.
So scripts that people can use.
And templates that they can follow and actually be able to have that conversation and see how they can help their team members.
But I think it's important when you're working to be honest with your supervisors or your managers that, I'm going through this and this is what I will need to do, and I just need a bit of your understanding. That, during this period, I need to take time off to go and see the gynae, to get my blood drawn, and I just need support. I mean, not every manager is going to, I don't know.
Say, sure.
Exactly. But I think it's important for people going through these treatments just to have these conversations with your superiors, just so that it's not a burden on your mind, like, he didn't know, should I tell him? When should I tell him?
I mean, it's yet another thing you have to think about, right? When you're already
dealing with everything else, and then you have to have the conversation.
But for anyone who has like a colleague, friend, direct report even, who might be going through this, what can they actually do? I'm not the grand gestures but about the small little things. What do you wish someone had done for you?
I wish if colleagues knew I was going through this, that they would try to take me out when I had my alone time in my cubicle, just so that we could have conversations and just so that I wouldn't have to think about, what I was going through, what results I was expecting next. So I think you don't have to ask the person, what's happening, and stress them out further by asking them details about what they're going through. But just calling them out, let's go have a tea, let's go have lunch, and let's talk about other things. I think that would have helped a lot. And that helps a lot.
For me, is maybe a little bit different. What I would tell somebody is, don't offer advice or, say things that they might not necessarily need. So don't ask for updates unless I think the person is willing to tell you this. I think the one thing that annoyed me was when people were like, relax, quit your job. I said, then who's paying for my IVF? You? Things like that. I think all these are kind of like unwanted souvenirs that you collect when they make those statements. Or they'll be like, are you sure you want kids? I've got 3, I've got 4, and it's so much trouble. That type of thing. And it just, I know they're trying in their way to make you feel better, but these just land as like cuts,
and it hurts,
and it hurts. And I'm like, yes, but I just want one. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to give advice. It's just be there. Like, do you need anything? Should we just go for coffee and talk about fashion? Like, that type of thing.
Yeah. And lastly, what's one thing you wish people knew about IVF and struggles with infertility?
It's too much lah.
Okay, you can do more than one thing. You can do more than
Can
one
it be
thing.
an expression like,
Yeah.
like that frustration,
Yeah.
anger,
Yeah.
everything bundled into one?
Yeah.
It's very hard to put it in a sentence or a feeling. I don't know.
I think that at the end of the day, it's a repeated cycle of like hope, disappointment, motivation, and then picking yourself up and trying again.
Oh gosh, this sounds like an Indian movie right now.
Yeah, it's like an emotional roller
Different
coaster.
emotions.
Right?
There's a musical in between, a fight
some
scene.
dancing.
Yeah, and that when you're going through it, that's the only thing you're thinking about. Yeah, because I mean, even though the science is there to help women who are experiencing infertility, but a lot of the times it's not guaranteed success.
Yeah,
and that's why women go through it.
Yeah,
multiple rounds.
Yeah. I feel like yes, it's science, but it's also an act of God, right? At the end to kind of make it successful.
Yes.
Before we go, Divya, Elisha, thank you so much for being so honest, for saying the things that usually stay private. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I hope this conversation inspires and gives hope to someone like me who's also on their journey.
I bet it will. Elisha?
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa, for inviting me to the table. And Divya, all the best in your journey. And I hope it was very useful for listeners as well to know that there are people going through exactly what they're going through with their fertility journey.
Yeah. Here's what I'm taking away from this episode. It's that fertility treatment is not just a medical process. It's an experience that takes over your body, your mind, your relationships, your sense of self. And, in this process, we can do better. Managers can do better. Colleagues can do better. And honestly, policy needs to catch up. If there's one thing I want anyone listening to carry out of this episode, it's this. If you are in a place where you're supporting someone going through this, you don't have to have the right words. You don't even have to understand it. Just show up, check in, and be there for them any way you can. If you're the one in the 2-week wait, or the one recovering from a loss, or just sitting at your desk trying to hold it all together, what I want to say is what you're carrying is real and you don't have to carry it alone. If you'd like to share your story, you can reach me by email. That's in the show notes. And if you want more details about Fertility Support SG and the work they do, their details are in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for listening.